Hi, my name is Melissa Negretti. For my project, I chose how to find how eyewitness testimonies compare to the use of DNA when identifying a suspect and how through the use of DNA evidence, those wrongfully accused are being exonerated. The reason I chose this topic is because I was so surprised to see how many innocent people have been convicted due to misidentification alone. There are other reasons such as coerced confessions, tainted evidence, government misconduct, unreliable information, and the most leading cause was misidentification. The use of DNA has provided scientific evidence that can prove a person's innocence or guilt. This evidence is not easily obtained and can take a great deal of time, especially once a person is convicted. For this purpose, it should be noted how easily a person can be accused, charged, and incarcerated without concrete evidence. The topics I will address in this presentation will cover how often eyewitness testimonies are wrong, how suspects are presented to a witness, different ways or techniques used to help reduce wrongful eyewitness testimonies, how our own memory and perception influence the way we interpret or remember a situation or an event, the formation of the Innocence Project and how this has helped exonerate hundreds of people, and how DNA evidence has helped overturn wrongful convictions. To begin, I want to identify one of the most recently released exonerees, Nathan Brown. He was wrongfully identified in 1997 by a white female who was attacked in the apartment complex they both resided in. The woman described a black man wearing black shorts and no shirt. A security guard directed them to Brown's apartment because he was a man that might possibly fit the description. When the police arrived at Brown's home, he was with his children and family. Although they insisted that he had been there during the time of the attack, he was still ordered to put on black shorts and he was presented to the victim. She identified him as her attacker, and Brown was charged. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and after serving 17 years, his case was accepted by the Innocence Project. Brown's DNA was tested against that retrieved from the crime scene and the dress that the victim was wearing, and it was proven through this scientific evidence that Brown was innocent. So at this point, I would like to demonstrate and give you the opportunity to test your skills and ability to retrieve information regarding an incident. So I want you to watch this short clip and pay close attention to the details of the suspect. So a hard fact is that 79% of the innocent people who have been exonerated by the use of DNA evidence were found guilty by eyewitness testimonies. 79% of those were exonerated. So other statistics show that 40% of all wrongful convictions were due to mistaken identity. It makes one question how a person's word can be so convincing. Several methods are used when presenting a suspect to the witness or the victim. There's the lineup, one most people are familiar with. This is where several people with similar features are placed together for identification. This can also be done with a photo array or several people as well. A show-up is simply presenting one person or photo to a witness. Both have been proven to be pretty ineffective. There are ways of improving eyewitness identification, which have been used and are more implemented now. One of the methods is called the double-blind presentation. In this case, neither the presenter or the witness know who the suspect may be. In addition to this, the presenter should not give any clues, verbal or nonverbal, to the witness. nor show any signs of approval or disapproval when a witness makes a decision. So the use of videotaping the lineup is used to ensure that these methods are being used and accounted for. So now I want to refer back to the video that we just watched. I want to present to you the lineup and see if you can identify the suspect. So think about what number you selected, and then I will let you know if you were correct.
This is a good one. This is a good one.
So now I'm wondering who you will choose from the lineup. How many of the details did you remember, and how confident do you think you are in your decision? If you selected any of the photos, you were wrong. The suspect was not part of the lineup. Another more effective method is to let the witness or victim know that the possibility the perpetrator or suspect may not be in the lineup should be given. That way they are given the option to say whether or not they thought the suspect was in the lineup, because most people are going to feel obligated to make a choice, and most often an innocent victim is going to serve a sentence while the bad guy goes free. Another factor that plays into this is memory and perception. These will also influence the way a person will remember an incident. This is affected by 3 different stages. First is the acquisition phase, which is also referred to as the encoding phase. This is the way that the information is perceived and how a person's expectations determine how that information will be received. The next phase is the retention phase, or the memory storage unit, and several things affect this stage, such as how much information is received at one time, or how outside information might taint a person's original perception, such as if they hear another witness talking about it, or just other people that might know about the crime. And then the third phase is the retrieval phase. This is where the information needs to be delivered, and as we can see, it can be distorted by about the time that they're able to do this, and therefore they say time is of the essence. The amount of time between the time that you viewed the video and the time that you were to select the person from the lineup was like within minutes, but many witnesses do not identify a suspect until days or maybe weeks later. So how accurate do you think that information can be? Okay, so there are 3 other factors that may influence the identification of a suspect. These include race, length of time between the lineup and the presentation, and how long a witness was shown a suspect's face. Race was a big factor. In fact, it was found that in a study by Pesdick and Blanda and Gitlin, that the person is more likely to successfully identify a person of their own race than that of another. Their study also pointed out, as previously mentioned, how time is of the essence. The time between an initial lineup and the time of the presentation phase will impact a witness's ability to recall and identify the suspect. And lastly, when a witness is shown a photo, or if there is repeated exposure to the suspect, the witness will indicate the familiar face as the target. It's easy to see how obvious eyewitness testimonies can be deceiving, and there are so many other factors that play into it, and yet it's still being used. But now that the Innocence Project and other partners, representing those who have been wrongfully convicted, there's new measures now that are being taken to improve the identification process and the criminal justice system as a whole. Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld created the Innocence Project in 1992 Their focus was to handle the many cases that were presented to them in hopes of using DNA evidence to prove the innocence of wrongfully convicted persons. The Innocence Project has also helped improve the way forensic evidence is obtained, processed, and stored for retrieval. Improvements have been made to forensic laboratories as well as holding those who handle the evidence more accountable. So because of the scrutiny regarding the criminal justice system and how the DNA and forensic evidence is treated, the evidence is more accurate, and this has led to 321 innocent people being exonerated. Of those, 173 were actually due to the Innocence Project alone. Testing can be obtained through various forms. There's swabs, clothing, hair, fingernails, even cigarettes. So once the information is obtained, it's put into the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, which is called CODIS. And that information can be obtained by all law enforcement agencies. The purpose for obtaining the DNA is not only for proving innocence or guilt, but also to deter future criminal activity. Those convicted are required to submit a DNA sample, and they know that they are in the system. Therefore, if they are released and commit another crime, the evidence can lead them more quickly to that person because they are already in that system. So, the process of inputting so much information, though, has clogged the system and slows down the speed in which DNA can be obtained. So now, initially those who were charged with murder and sex offenders were put into the system, but in 2002, those that were charged with robbery and burglary were required to submit evidence, and in 2005, anyone with a felony was required to submit DNA. In 2007, some states enacted a law requiring that anyone convicted of a misdemeanor, and even those prior to adjudication, were to provide a sample. This flood of information takes time to input and process, so the deterrent effect that they originally were after does not work in this case. If the criminal is aware of the length of time it will take to match his DNA to that in the system, he will not be deterred. Obtaining DNA from extended family members or relatives of those charged has also contributed to this increase of information. This has caused some controversy regarding whether this goes against a person's Fourth Amendment rights. So family members should be given the option to submit a sample and to know their right to say no. But since most people will submit to law enforcement, this right should be presented to them. Therefore, this leads to other policies and implications which have led to the flood of DNA and has caused the delay in retrieving or entering that information. So due to the number of wrongful convictions, the criminal justice system as a whole has been scrutinized for malpractice. Forensic evidence has been said to be tainted. Innocent people have been incarcerated and put to death. The overloaded system has not deterred further criminal activity due to the delays in matching evidence to the DNA samples, and some crimes are committed where DNA evidence cannot be obtained, and therefore a reliance on eyewitnesses is most likely to occur. So due to this, new statutes have been provided. Some people who have been incarcerated due to the guilty plea cannot even request a post-conviction DNA test. So this statute is being checked into and it's being looked at. However, the problem is that it's so hard to change these statutes that are already in place. So a higher standard for forensic laboratories has been established, with the accountability measures being taken by all levels of evidence obtained and stored and tested. These guidelines have helped to ensure the accuracy of collecting DNA and the processing of its information. Stats show malpractice of forensic science only qualifies for 11% of wrongful convictions. This is far less than human error or guilty pleas. Because statutes are so difficult to change, legislators should not continue to expand the scope in which offenders are required to submit DNA, and in fact should actually remove those charged for misdemeanors and minor offenses from having to submit. It's further addressed that eventually Those with minor felonies, such as possession of drugs, should not be required to submit. Since only processing information in a more timely manner can make effective change on arrests and deterrence, these measures of reducing the load on an already overloaded system will speed up time efficiency. Lastly, legislatures need to remove the deterrence as a goal if they cannot take the measures needed to reduce the amount of DNA obtained from non-felony offenders. So far, 30 states have statutes to provide compensation. However, 20 states, including Idaho, do not. It's the responsibility of our states to ensure fairness if our legal system is unjust, and if a person is wrongfully charged, the state should take responsibility for the mistakes. Housing, food, counseling, medical assistance, job training, all of those things should be provided to include compensation for the years that they've lost, providing for their family and being a part of society. So in short, this project has shown the importance of empirical evidence that can be scientifically proven to provide clear and accurate proof of a person's guilt or innocence. It has demonstrated the use of eyewitness testimonies and the number of wrongful convictions due to human error. It has shown the reasons for delays in the DNA information to be entered and retrieved. But mostly it has shown how, regardless of the methods used, whether witness or science, time is of the essence in all stages and processes of our criminal justice system. Thank you for your time.